Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Jebber Game and Jaws here, and I wanted to come and talk about my favorite system of all time, which is the Sony PlayStation. The original Sony PlayStation I don't actually have. I currently own a PS1, which I actually don't even use right now because I play my games on the PS2. I have component cables for the PS2, so it actually works better than my PS1, which I only have composite for. But I would really like to eventually buy the old unit that I originally bought way back in the day. So the PlayStation was the first console that I ever bought with my own money. It was a really big deal. Before that, we had a Atari 2600 as a family, and then a Sega Genesis. And the Sega Genesis was funny because that came into my life when I was pretty young. I'm not exactly sure the age, but I would think around 6 or so. And we had that for quite a few years and loved the thing. And, that wasn't anything that I sought out trying to get. It was just, it showed up in my house and that was great. So played that a whole lot, but we had some friends that I went over to their house and they had a PlayStation hooked up and we played some wrestling games and I was just completely blown away and I really wanted one and I brought it up to my family. I was always trying to wear them down on, Mom and Dad, can you please get me a PlayStation, that would be great. That just wasn't happening. I think that my dad might have been into the idea, but my mom didn't want us spending a whole bunch of time on video games and probably thought that we always spent enough time on the Sega Genesis and, just didn't want to bring in more. So for a long time, it just kind of was like a stalemate. I didn't talk about it a whole lot because I knew I wasn't going to get very far with it. And then finally, I went to a birthday party at my friend Tyler Axon's house, and we stayed up the entire night playing a game, Army Men 3D. And it's so funny that this game made such a huge impact on me at the time because the game, I don't know, I would say that it's not that good. It didn't get good reviews, but at the time, I'm still thinking back, remembering how much freaking fun we had playing this game just for hours and hours and hours. And we would play the multiplayer mode, and they had capture the flag, and you ran around as these little army men dudes trying to get the other person's flag and then bring it back to yours. So I don't know. I love this game honestly, and I will never forget all the amazing times that we had. And when I finally saved up money and talked my parents into getting a PlayStation, this was the game that I brought home with it. And it was that birthday party that actually made me just I am getting a PlayStation. It's not it's not even a question now. This is happening. I am not living anymore without a PlayStation. And I'm thinking that I was probably around 10 years old. So I finally was able to go get a PlayStation with Army Men 3D. Life changed. We got a demo disc that came along with it, and I just remember how much fun it was sitting there with my siblings playing this game, playing the demo disc. That's how we found Spyro the Dragon, which was an amazing game that my entire family ended up loving, and my dad actually ended up buying that game because we were all having so much fun with it. I remember loving the controller and just how awesome it was at the time. Especially dual analog sticks were not common at that point. I think this is the first controller that ever did that, and it was just pretty cool. I still don't particularly love the D-pad. If I'm going to use the D-pad, this thing will wear your fingers out really fast because it's not connected. I remember my thumb hurting quite a bit whenever I would use that a lot. But generally, I would use the analog stick anyway, so love that. The system really just was such a game changer for me, and I want to just go through some of the games that I played at the time, and then some of the games that I've missed, and some of the games I've gone back to, and just kind of talk about this amazing system that I just love so much. It's literally my favorite system of all time. If I had to be stuck with only one console and its library, it would be the Sony PlayStation. It is just that good, in my opinion. So, a game that really changed my life, and again, I found out about this on a demo disc, was Syphon Filter. And I remember sitting with the demo disc, and we had some friends over. Their entire family was over. And all of us kids and all of their kids were just playing the shit out of the demo disc. And I was beaming with delight. I was having such a good time. And finally, I ended up buying the game. This game was hands down my favorite game of all time. The game is still really, really good. The controls are awesome. It's really remarkable what they were able to do at the time. Eventually, Syphon Filter 2 was on the horizon, and before this game came out, I was reading about it in magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly, etc., probably the PlayStation magazine. Just going insane, just so excited for it. And actually, my friends ended up making fun of me so much because every time that I saw anyone new that I hadn't talked to about it before, or couldn't remember if I had talked to him, I was like, dude, did you know Syphon Filter 2 is coming out? Did you know Syphon Filter 2 is coming out? And like, I was just so excited and giddy that I just wanted to talk about the game nonstop. And so eventually, one of my friends was like, dude, Syphon Filter 2 is coming out, blah, blah. You know, so finally I was like, okay, geez, I gotta cool it a little bit. But it didn't hamper my excitement at all, and I got this game and played the shit out of it and loved it. Syphon Filter 3 ended up coming out, and I did get that game. I never got all the way through that one, unfortunately, but such an amazing series, so much fun. Those are games that I would love to go back and actually just play all the way through. Now, I remember going to my friend's house and playing Twisted Metal 2 and having a whole bunch of fun, car combat. I didn't own the game, but I played it there and loved it. And so eventually when I was at the store, I saw Twisted Metal 3, and I was like, oh, cool, well, I'll just grab that one. So apparently this is the crap game, and that's the amazing game. At the time, I didn't know anything about that, and I got this and took it home and just had an absolutely amazing time. I loved everything about it. It was great. I would like to go back and play that one also. And then, so I've talked about this many times. There was definitely a point where gaming changed for me. And I won't dwell on this a lot because I talk about it a whole lot. But my brother-in-law, my now brother-in-law, he was just dating my sister at the time, and he was older and in college, lent me these two games. These are not the exact copies. I've gone back and bought these again. But he lent me Final Fantasy VII and Metal Gear Solid. I think Metal Gear Solid first. And these games just changed everything. Like, that made gaming so insane. I remember standing in the store before I had played Final Fantasy VII, and I was just looking at video games, and there was an older kid, and he was just like, you have to play that game, you know, talking all about it. And I was just sold. So then I did try it eventually, and man, what a life-changing experience. One of the best memories I ever have had in my life. So eventually, for some reason, I didn't get Final Fantasy VIII right away. I ended up getting Final Fantasy IX right when it launched. I remember it was about to launch, and I was so excited about it. It's an amazing game. Just, this game is so good. Everybody should play this game. I replay all these Final Fantasy games quite a bit. Eventually, I got Final Fantasy VIII. Loved this one also. The opening cinematics to this at the time just completely blew my mind. And I just love the case. I'm so glad to have these in a really beautiful, good condition copies. I love the artwork for this game. I like the gunblade. There's just, it's so good, so good. So at the time also, when I was still pretty young, I was lucky enough that they had re-released some of the Final Fantasy games from the Super Nintendo. So I picked up Final Fantasy Chronicles. I played through Final Fantasy IV. If I remember right, this was actually the hard version of the game. So they had an easier version that was released in the States and a harder version in Japan. And then when they released this, they brought over the hard version. If anybody knows that for sure, I haven't looked it up, but I remember reading that way back at the time and being like, yeah, it makes sense why I had to grind for 10 hours to beat the last boss. Literally had to grind for 10 hours to finally beat the last boss. You know, and I wasn't probably the best at the games at the time. I was still pretty young, but it also was the first time I ever played through Chrono Trigger. Like, how amazing. I would never play these games on the PlayStation now. I like playing them on the Super Nintendo, which is the original way that they were played. But I'm so grateful that this did come out, and at the time, because I didn't own a Super Nintendo, that I was still able to experience those games and go back. I also picked up Final Fantasy Anthology at the time and played Final Fantasy VI for the first time, also on the PlayStation. Awesome. For some reason, I got burned out about halfway through, and it wasn't until years later that I went back and bought the game on the Super Nintendo proper and played through it there. And then I also never got to Final Fantasy V either, which was kind of sad. So, another thing, so before I had played Chrono Trigger, actually, my friend brought up Chrono Cross and said that that was coming out. And I remember going to the store and looking at the display and just loving this case. Like, I just thought it looked like an amazing adventure. You know, I was intrigued by the characters and by Link's back there. And my friend told me that it was a sequel to this amazing game that I was like, shit, I don't know shit about that. But I was like, okay, great. So I bought this game, and this is absolutely one of my favorites on the system. It's so freaking amazing. Replay that one on a regular basis. So recently it's been fun picking up some PlayStation games that I missed, you know, way back in the day. There's plenty of games that I still really need to get. About 6 months ago, I picked up Doom and played a lot of that. So much fun. This is my this is my ideal first-person shooter. Super simple, no complex aiming. You just like point in the general direction, you're gonna hit them. I love that. I also picked up Legend of Dragoon. I played through this game. It was really good. I had a demo of this when I was a kid, actually, and we played the demo quite a bit. Unfortunately, I never actually owned the game at the time. It definitely stacks up with the RPGs of the time. I wouldn't say that it's quite as good as the Squaresoft games, but it's still pretty good. It was enough to keep my attention for the whole game. So, man, this game completely blew me away. I actually owned this Xenogears back in the day, and I was never able to finish the game. I got stuck. I was playing it when I was a kid, and for some reason, I don't know if my game glitched or what happened, but I was never able to finish the game because I couldn't walk into this town. And looking back on it, it may have been something as simple as like I had to get out of the mech before I could walk into the town. I'm not really sure what happened, but I just remember going ballistic trying to figure out how to progress in the game and looking up walkthroughs and all that, and so frustrating that I wasn't able to actually play through it then. But I played this game all the way through about a year ago, and it did not disappoint. This game is so awesome. I wish that it wasn't such a daunting task to play through it, because I would love to play through it again, and I'm sure that eventually I will. But at this point, it's just such a long game, and there's just so much to it that it seems daunting. But man, it was so good the first time through, and I would highly recommend, if you have not played this game, you absolutely have got to, if you like RPGs at all. So I've also picked up some other games that I never got to play at the time and have just been intriguing to me. These are on my backlog. I've got Fear Effect. I remember at the time seeing this and it looked good to me, so I would like to give that a try. Final Fantasy Tactics. I've never really gotten into the strategy RPG genre, but I have that. Would like to get there. Vagrant Story. This game appeals to me so much. I love the graphics. I think it's a beautiful game. I actually played about 10 hours into it. I was having a lot of fun with it, but it was definitely different than anything I had experienced before, and I wasn't quite ready for it. I wasn't quite ready for something that detailed, that you had to pay that much attention to. So I'm going to be going back to this game when I'm ready to really dive in. The crafting system was complex. I did not quite understand what I was doing. And some things with the battle system were a little bit shaky in my mind. So, yeah, got to go back and play that one. I have never played Lunar Silver Star Story Complete. I am looking forward to playing this eventually. I had to grab it because it just looks like it's right up my alley, and I've only heard amazing things about it. Following the Squaresoft route, Parasite Eve. This one I will definitely just one day pick up and play through really quickly, because it's apparently not even that long. It's like a 10 to 15 hour game. So it shouldn't be a big deal to play through that one, and I'm really looking forward to it. As long as I really like the first one, I've also got Parasite Eve 2 sitting here. I'm really excited to get through all of these games. There's so many other games, especially role-playing games on the system that I haven't played yet. I would love to get Spyro the Dragon back. I love that game so much. The Crash Bandicoot games were big at the time. I really wish that I kept all my old games. I remember when 007 Tomorrow Never Dies came out, playing that game, and it wasn't really that good, but I had a lot of fun playing it. Back, I remember playing Mission Impossible and having a lot of fun playing that game, even though I would never play those games again. Like, they're pretty shit. But when you're a kid, you just have a lot of fun. You just play whatever's in front of you. So just wanted to do a PlayStation Memories video. I loved that system so much. It was so fun when I finally talked my dad into it. I remember going to Circuit City, having my money. I think that they had a deal at like Toys R Us or something, but it was a further drive to go there. So we took in the ad and they were able to match the price, and I was able to get it. Maybe it was Best Buy that was having the deal. I can't remember. So at the time that I bought it, it was $130. So it was definitely not early in the life cycle. So I was definitely kind of later, which is amazing that I still had such an incredible experience with the system, even though I wasn't able to get it for such a long time. I really remember when I was at my friend's house the very first time playing the PlayStation, we played a lot of wrestling games. We were playing stuff like WCW Nitro and probably a bunch of WWF games. I don't even know. WCW Nitro, I remember that one specifically because I ended up buying it. I remember my brother playing Gran Turismo and having a lot of fun with that. I wasn't super into racing games, but man, the system just has so much. I would also like to talk about the fact that people always talk about how the PlayStation has not aged well. I think that's a complete load of shit, to be perfectly honest. I love the graphic style of the PlayStation still to this day. It's very interesting to go back and look at reviews of games at the time. Like, I looked up Chrono Cross on IGN, and I specifically went to the graphics section because I'm like, were people back then just like, oh, these games look like shit, you know? No, like, they literally are sitting there talking about how amazing the game looks, how beautiful the graphics are, how the colors are awesome. And, like, when I see a beautiful PlayStation game, that's what I see. I don't see something that's aged so poorly and just looks like complete shit. Like, I love the graphical style. Obviously, I mean, I'm a little bit, like, influenced by the fact that I grew up with it, and that system changed my life so much, but like you can appreciate the aesthetic of the graphics without it necessarily having good graphics, you know. Just because the graphics, you know, aren't like what they are today doesn't mean that that every game is ugly. There are ugly games, of course, you know. That's going to be on any system, but the PlayStation had really good graphics at the time, and to me, still aesthetically, you know, Final Fantasy 9, 8, they look beautiful. Chrono Cross looks beautiful. Final Fantasy 7 looked a little shit at the time, even in my opinion. I really like the pre-rendered backgrounds, but the character models, those were pretty rough. Like, I do have to be honest about that one, but yeah, anyways, guys, just wanted to talk about my memories of this beloved system, and if you guys have any good memories of the PlayStation, let me know. I'd love to hear your stories also. Man, I freaking love that system so much. It makes me want to go play some stuff right now. Probably play some Twisted Metal or some Syphon Filter. Alright, guys. Peace out. Have a good one.